My name has always been nah, nah. That's what it sounds like, and that's what it's always been.
It's a good name.
It's who I am.
Tom Hanks' remarks about Samantha Lewes will shock you. Tom has managed to keep his personal life private, but the times have changed. Hence, at 69 years old, the Hollywood superstar has decided to reveal a secret no one saw coming. The truth about his feelings for Samantha Lewes. What exactly did he say about her? How disturbing is this revelation on his current marriage? Join us as we discuss Tom's emotional confession that shook Hollywood and his marriage. Tom Hanks, finding his passion. Born July 9, 1956, in the modest town of Concord, California, Tom never had the feel of a warm, steady home, where a father could provide or have as many holidays as he might have wanted as a child. His father, Amos Hanks, worked as a wandering chef, roaming the United States with his culinary skills and earning just about enough to get by. Also, his mother was no different, as she could rarely find a footing in the world, seemingly losing out on everything good that the world had to offer. While financial stability was a rare sight for Tom as a child, he was also rocked by serious waves of emotional tempest, especially when his parents got divorced in 1960. He was only 4 years old and already bearing the brunt of a broken family. Of course, he was a minor at the time, hence, he had no choice on which parent to follow. His father picked him up with two of his older siblings, Sandra and Larry, and they journeyed into the struggle together, going from gig to gig, kitchen to kitchen, just to make ends meet. Was it enough? Definitely not. But Tom's father was not a quitter, and he wasn't going to raise his kids as one. He spotted Tom's talents early. Tom was a kid who loved the performing arts, where he got to be someone else. Someone different from the emotionally broken kid who watched his parents get divorced at 4 years old in an icy standoff that drowned him for many years.
Well, look, I think what I should do is,
and left him gasping for stability ever since. Hank was a geek, a horribly shy kid who just could not fit in anywhere, no matter how much he tried. However, he was also the type to stir up silly comments during film strips. But one thing was sure, he made sure to never get in trouble in school, as it seemed like the only place where he could plan his future without the distractions at home. As Hank grew up, he needed to find a way to get his life on track, and the time for him to make a career was approaching, like the wind during a storm. Life was finally crashing down like an avalanche from the peak of the mountain, and he had to make a choice whether to be sunken in the snow or find a way to survive. So he chose to chase a career in theater, finally following a dream different from his father's kitchen gigs. How well did his choice for that work out for him? Tom makes a choice. As a young man, Tom Hanks was a perfect male specimen, with blue eyes that most found irresistible and a chiseled structure of a gazelle that made him suitable for sports. However, as much as he loved his role as a halfback when he played college football with hopes that he might even win a Heisman Trophy, he enjoyed being in the theater more, watching some scene from a play unfolding, line deliveries in iambs, like in regular Shakespeare, or in trochees, for different effects. He just found something about it so scintillating. So he stuck to his guns and doubled down on studying theater at Chabot College in Hayward, California, before transferring to California State University, Sacramento. While he took his acting classes seriously, Tom was the type to want more than learning from the pages of a book. He wanted something that seemed a bit more practical, so he dropped out of Sacramento in 1976. Just a year after he joined the university, making him one of their most famous dropouts. His reasons seemed rather impractical at the time, but for a man like Tom, he had experienced too much in his life to doubt himself, so he decided to intern at Grand Lakes Theater Festival, Cleveland, Ohio, after he met the head of the Institute, Vincent Dowling. It was the perfect opportunity to finally learn how to do the job while already being on the set and watching professionals have a go at some of the most difficult jobs: directing, lighting, learning their lines, and practicing their deliveries. It was a dream come true for him. While he was learning all of the basics of acting and directing a play, he was also getting acting gigs, going on stage, and showing the world what he could do. During that time, he won the Cleveland Critics Circle Award for Best Actor for his 1978 performance as Proteus in Shakespeare's
But unfortunately not very smart.
Sweet. What dumb as a goat. Anyway.
The Two Gentlemen of Verona, one of the few times he played a villain. Voila, he had finally found his calling, but there was still a choice in front of him. He had the option of returning to school and getting that degree in theater arts, like he had planned from the inception of time, or simply continuing this speedy run on the road to fame on the silver screen. After a while, he decided to take the high road and pursue his career without any regrets, regardless of what happens in the long run. The stage was more than a place where they performed. For him, it was a place where he got the most visibility and warm applause that he could definitely get used to, unlike the cold comfort of his broken home. Following his decision to pursue a career in films rather than just being on the stage, he moved to New York, where he found a boost in his career, and then love. How important was this move to New York in the grand scheme of things? Finding superstardom and love. Moving to New York was a defining moment in Tom's career. The cards were finally on the table, and he has now chosen to go all in while throwing caution to the wind. It wasn't long before he discovered that New York, which was a wonderful place to look at in the magazines, was a completely different beast compared to Ohio. The rooms were super expensive and also really small. He had no job at the time, or any credit in the bank that could have bailed him out, nor could he reach out for help from his dad, who was barely making ends meet, while he seemed to have met his. However, when he went to New York, he wasn't by himself. He had Michael John McGann, whom he met while he was working in Cleveland with the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival ensemble in the late 1970s, as his company. Tom, knowing his own background, stuck closely with McGann, who encouraged the move to the Big Apple, where they could both pursue their careers in acting passionately.
Is it days?
I do not know.
Weeks?
I don't know.
Months?
I hope not.
Already, Tom had sold his car, a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle, to pay for the move, and drove east on the I-80 with McGann to New York City. Unable to set off on his own for obvious economic factors, McGann was kind enough to let Tom Hanks sleep on his couch for weeks while he was auditioning for movies, commercials, and off-Broadway and Broadway shows. He wanted superstardom, so he had to put in the work, and that is exactly what he did. But even when Tom had begun to find jobs that could take him out of his situation, he was only a kid at the time. He had never had to do any adult thing in his whole life. Hence, he needed McGann, who co-signed his first apartment lease, which was for a horridly dark and busted-up fourth-floor walk-up in Hell's Kitchen. He described this act of kindness as a moment of risky generosity he will never, ever forget. But aside from getting his own apartment and starting life in New York, he had finally made his debut on film. His debut came in a low-budget slasher film, He Knows You Are Alone, in 1980. And just like that, his performance triggered a chain reaction in Hollywood. Suddenly, he was getting more calls for more roles in bigger budget movies. And in 1982, he was cast as the lead actor, Callimaco, in the Riverside Shakespeare Company's production of Niccolo Machiavelli's The Mandrake, directed by Daniel Southern. It wasn't his first rodeo on stage anyway, but this was a step up from what he did in Cleveland. And in the same year, he landed a starring role in the television movie.
5 years old, his parents divorced. According to local California laws, custody of the children remained with the father.
Mazes and Monsters, the project that finally brought him to the front lines with Hollywood's elites. At the time, Tom could do no wrong. His decision to go to New York had suddenly started paying off, but it got even better when he met the love of his life, Rita Wilson. But just how did this meeting happen? Love and Hollywood. Although Tom Hanks came to the Big Apple in pursuit of his career, he soon started to want more. His life and appearances seemed to cluster mainly around Broadway, movie sets, and a rare visit to his mentor McGann now and then. Of course, it was nothing to complain about, as it was always the reason he came to New York in the first place. But coming from a place where he never really had the semblance of what stability looked like, nor experienced, for a long time, what it meant to have two parents living together and raising their kids under the same roof. He wanted clarity and to develop a family, but he also needed to be with the right woman. For some context, he was married to Samantha Lewes in 1978, with whom he had one son, Colin, and one daughter. But somehow, they could not make it work. especially because Tom wanted to pursue his career in acting when he moved to New York in 1979. Ergo, he needed a way back into the world of love without losing his hold on his blossoming career. He wanted both things at the same time, and he was not settling for less. He felt that he had worked hard enough to deserve that, so he pursued it. While his search had seemed hopeless for some time, in 1981, two of the things he cared about the most started to align: a bigger budget movie and a chance at meeting the woman of his dreams.
Great, how are you?
Very good. Water?
Tom Hanks got the call in 1981 to audition for a role as Kip Wilson on the ABC television show Bosom Buddies, where he and Peter Scolari played a pair of young advertising men forced to dress as women so they could live in an inexpensive all-female hotel in the pilot of the series. While he landed that role, he also landed his eyes on Rita Wilson, a beautiful actress who was also on the set, having bagged a role for a guest appearance as Cindy in episode 2 of the sitcom. Once they looked at each other, they felt an instant connection, and they decided to be friends at first, just trying to see where it all went. While Tom Hanks continued with his show on the ABC network, Rita had a whole different project, meaning that they barely got to see each other enough to kindle the sparks that were already flying between them. It wasn't long before their little meeting led to bigger rumors of them secretly seeing each other while Tom was still with his first wife, Samantha Lewes. However, in 1987, when the marriage between Tom and Samantha had fully fizzled out, Tom and Rita came out publicly to assert their relationship. But just how far did they take their relationship? Rita and Wilson, a power couple. While names like David Beckham and Victoria Beckham and Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan Markle might ring bells as some of the most popular power couples around, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson have been there, done that, and are still doing it. The pair did not have it easy and had to fight for their rights through years of perseverance and fear of what the public might say or the media might write about them. At first, the dynamics of their relationship were extremely difficult because Tom was married, and he wanted to make it work with his wife because of their 2 kids. It was a painful experience for him, especially because he was also a product of a broken marriage, a broken trust, and a broken family. Hence, he fought tooth and nail to keep his first marriage intact. However, if there was anyone who understood the heart always wants what it wants, it was definitely Tom Hanks, who left Cleveland, where he had real comfort with the Grand Lake team he worked with, but still opted for a chance at taking on the world in New York. As much as he tried, his marriage to Samantha collapsed, and he could tell there was no going back, meaning that he had a choice to make. He could keep dating Rita in the shadows and start a family without anyone knowing about it, or just outright take on the world while holding Rita's hand and never letting go. At first, they kept the cat-and-mouse game going, but when they reconnected on the set of the 1985 movie Volunteers, there was no hiding that kind of chemistry. The gossip was alive, hunting them around the set and breathing down their necks, choking them with an earful. It was too little, too late to reconsider any options of telling some white lie about their relationship. So Tom, in agreement with Rita, chose the latter option, letting everyone know that they weren't only together, but also planned to get married. They had made their decision, and they stuck with it, getting married less than 2 years after they came out openly about it in 1986. On April 30th, 1988, about a year after his divorce from Samantha,
Let me get this straight. I try to use it in places where, like, look, those are up.
Tom married Rita. However, before their marriage, Tom had secretly converted to her faith, the Greek Orthodox Church, which was a contrast to the Mormon and Catholic upbringing that he had. Things we do love, eh? After their marriage, they had 2 kids, Chester, Chet Hanks, and Truman Hanks. Like his dad, Chet was all in for the world of entertainment, where he focused on music and acting. In 2011, he dropped a rap song and then went on to have recurring roles in big television shows like Empire and Shameless. But how did this power couple move on with their careers after all the fuss about their union? The Hanks machine keeps it moving. Following their marriage, the dynamics of their family were completely changed, especially since Tom Hanks had primary custody of the children. Tom had finally found some stability, a steady income, and a name that everyone knew. Hence, it was a no-brainer that he won primary custody of the children. However, it wasn't long before the machines of propaganda went into overdrive, and the media berated and slated Tom Hanks and Rita, portraying them as the powerful couple who decided to separate a mother, Samantha, in this case, from her kids. As expected, it wasn't the perfect or true scenario, but the picture had been painted, and Tom Hanks and Rita had been used as the unapologetic faces of the rich bourgeoisie, taking over whatever they wanted because they could. While the conversations festered, Tom and Rita kept it together like the power couple that they are, and simply focused on their careers and their kids, drowning out the outside noise and keeping themselves together. The couple had always been certain of a rough patch anyway, especially Tom Hanks, who was already married with kids before he met Rita. "When I married Rita, I thought, this is going to require some change on my part," Tom said. "I won't deny that fate was part of us finding each other, but our relationship isn't magic the way it's shown in movies," he asserted. Tom understood that in real life, their connection was just as concrete as it was from the beginning. And even though marriage comes close to being hell in a handbasket sometimes, they both know that no matter what, they have each other's backs and will get through it. Such has been the mentality of the lovers, and they never wavered. However, things got worse when Samantha Lewes, Tom's ex-wife, lost her life in a battle with bone cancer. Her death was difficult for Tom, but he was rarely vocal about her, like he is now about his new marriage to Rita. 23 years after her death, their daughter, E.A. Hanks, finally reflected the couple's real connection in her memoir, which she titled A Memoir of Family and the Open Road. "My dad was traumatized by his childhood and his family's divorce, and a revolving door of step-parents and step-siblings," E.A. explained. "The love that existed between my parents is two hurt kids trying to dig out of a well together." According to sources very close to the Hanks family, quotes from the memoir had started to threaten his marriage and the unity of his family behind the scenes, with pain and regrets taking over what used to be so peaceful. However, amidst all that, Tom was willing to reassure Rita Wilson how he felt about her behind the scenes, keeping the ship tight together and making sure that his family does not capsize under the ridiculous media rebellion that has surrounded them lately. But to what length is Tom willing to go to keep his family from falling apart? Keeping it together. As a man who had worked in the media all his life, Tom Hanks definitely knows a thing or two about being the subject of some reporter's grunt work and always having the need to come up with some pieces in a smear campaign against you, with buzzwords like allegedly, to keep the ruse going. So he decided to break his silence about his ex-wife. If the ghost of his past was going to continuously hurt the chances of his future being kept together, he was ready to extinguish it with one blow. It's an open secret that Tom Hanks grew up in a poor family, which was torn apart before he was even 5 years old. But with Samantha Lewes, it was different. She had just as much difficulty as the next person, or even more. There were reports that she had a physically and mentally abusive mother who kept her on her toes all the time, making her life difficult as she grew up. Samantha's real name was Susan Dillingham, but she changed it for some well-kept reason. She met Tom in Sacramento, where they were both studying theater.
Growing up in these sort of circumstances, I think there was definitely a sense of...
And the sparks had been flying between them ever since. Having fallen in love, they had their first child, Colin, in 1977. At the time, Tom Hanks was only 21 years old. They had both lived a checkered life, growing up with barely enough love and trying to make their own way in the world. Although Samantha featured as a waitress in the sitcom Blossom Bubble, as a waitress, she was barely staying within the sight of the media, but instead preferring to lurk in the background, keeping herself away from everyone else, largely owing to her traumatic experiences as a child.
Of Arabic, and then they won the lottery, the green card lottery.
While Tom had been quiet for a long time about their relationship, his words, when he finally chose to speak, carried a lot of pain and guilt that had been hiding so deeply in the depths of his old heart. "A broken marriage meant I was sentencing my own kids to the sort of feelings I had at their age," Tom said. "I was just too young and insecure for marriage. I was 23, and my son Colin was already 2 when I married for the first time. I was not really ready to take on those responsibilities. He recognized himself as the problem in their marriage, and how Samantha was probably the only woman for him at the time. She understood him because of their similar past and was ready to even step away from the sunlight and into the shadows if it meant that she did not interfere with the rise in his career. This revelation was a bottled-up feeling of guilt triggered by a memoir. Who would have thought that a memoir could do that to a man as private as the 69-year-old? But while these confessions painted Samantha positively and gave her kids some kind of closure because they came directly from Tom, sources believe that he also had to find a way to keep the 68-year-old Rita happy enough to know that his comments on Samantha being the only one for him were said in relation to the times when he struggled and needed a familiar anchor. Has he been able to keep her happy? Love in the time of trials. Although Tom Hanks has recently talked about Samantha in ways that he never had until the memoir, rumors about his love life with Rita, consequently hitting a sour patch, have been regarded as wide of the mark by sources close to them. While Tom's remarks were heavily criticized by some, who had no understanding of the strength of Tom's marriage with Rita, the couple had already been through too much to be fazed at the ages of 68 and 69 by simple words of truth. Their love life had always been built on more than just their physical attraction to each other. Tom believes that the success of their relationship was built on timing, maturity, and a willingness to have an intimate connection with each other. For some context, Tom Hanks revealed to the world that he had type 2 diabetes, opening up about it being a result of genes and unhealthy life choices. He was very open about the fact that his family had a history of it, and he simply ate anything he wanted while he was bored, even when he was armed with these secrets. Although Rita did not see it coming, or the possibility that he would drop the bombshell in the interview,
to work that day, all right? So that's one thing that you have to do. And the other side of it is, if you have to be charming...
She supported him, discussing how much they had cut down on sugar and finding the time to exercise amidst their obviously busy schedule. While she showered him with love, he was no different. Tom has been there for her throughout the course of her life. A perfect scenario would be her invasive lobular carcinoma, a type of breast cancer that occurs relatively more often than usual in women. Tom was standing firm, watching her suffer and doing his best to soothe her. Rita's journey through breast cancer was profoundly supported by her husband, Tom,
And in this place, very often.
and her close-knit family and friends. I feel blessed to have a loving, supportive husband, family, friends, and doctor, she said. While Tom's comment on Samantha as a result of the memoir might have sounded like a choice, his head and heart have undoubtedly always been with one woman alone, Rita Wilson. Do you think Tom Hanks shouldn't have discussed his feelings about the broken marriage with Samantha after well over 3 decades? Is there a chance that his confession may finally ruin the perfect family he now has? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.